Hello and welcome to another episode of the Outdoor Given podcast. Sorry again for a slight delay. Obviously a few things over the Christmas and New Year period that have affected this, family related, and then there was the snow. We won't talk about the snow that started on the 1st of January and then it snowed for 4 days solidly, causing absolute chaos to Aberdeenshire. In some places depths of up to 70 centimetres. It's still here, it's defrosting rapidly, but we are still snowbound. I needed to get this podcast out as well because at the end of it they talk about going to a show which starts today. So hopefully you will all listen to this, go and find the Dead Badger Clothing Company at the show and say that you heard them on the podcast. Anyway, where are we in the year? Well, we're in January 2026 and it's started. I can't really say much more than that. Obviously, as I said, the snow has caused chaos and massive disruptions, and then we've had this cold snap throughout the country that seems to have caused a few other issues. It has put a lot of pressure on species and wildlife up here, from small birds to my pheasants having to dig feeders out, to deer in places where they shouldn't be, desperately trying to find food. So some of the deer that we harvested at the start of the year really had no fat in them at all, no fat reserves. It may well be because up until then there has been an abundance of food, with December being incredibly mild still. I think our last snow was back in November. So these animals seem to have no reserves, and my biggest concern was if this snow had lasted even longer than the 8 days that it was here, it would have really showed a mortality rate that was increasing. I could see that because we had deer knocking over pheasant feeders and as I say, going to places where we've never seen them before just to try and find something. With a foot of snow on the ground, even the rape on the fields was all covered, so they weren't even able to get to that. It certainly won't be the last of the snow. I suspect we'll have more in towards the end of January, February, possibly even March. However, it does give me time to start planning for this coming season. We've already had some good chats and organisation of more podcasts, connections, videos, especially the videos. The YouTube channel is now being developed and hopefully we will get some more films out. We did put out a poll recently asking you what you would like to see. It came back strongly in the favour of hunting videos, as well as some gear reviews, some other great cool chats with people, and something else. Have no idea what something else is, but we'll work something else out for something else. We were going to run a podcast competition on the run up to Christmas. Unfortunately, we didn't, just due to unforeseen circumstances, but we will get that competition running again. What I'm going to do now is we are going to have a quick word from our sponsors, and then we'll dive into our chat with the Dead Badger Clothing Company. The Outdoor Given podcast is proudly sponsored by the Shooting and Hunting Academy, an online training platform and UK registered learning provider that provides a host of accredited and nationally available courses and masterclasses delivered by leading industry experts.
Hi guys, it's Rachel here from Style, the new social app for field sports and farming. Join our countryside community on the App Store or Google Play. Just search Style Country. Enjoy the show!
Welcome to another episode of the Outdoor Given podcast. Today I am joined by the creator of Dead Badger Clothing. I know as hunters we'd all like to see dead badgers, but we won't go there because it's another topic altogether. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on the show. There is another half to this as well. He's not here at the moment. I have a business partner as well, but he's very busy with his own mechanicking and things, and he just kind of leaves me to do this whole thing entirely. He's been very good in that it's a case of do what you want. I'll take control if you balls it up.
Fair enough. That kind of let's get a bit of background. Who are you? And obviously, and then we can talk about the clothing brand and where it came from. How's it sort of all started out?
Well, a bit of background on me. I'm a beef farmer from Somerset. I've been doing that practically my whole adult life. Family farm. My mum and dad built the place from scratch, with nothing. So I've been taught a lot of hard graft. A lot of, you don't get handed anything in this life, you've got to go get it yourself.
Yep.
Which is, it's still good morals, good virtues in me, I think, good ethics. And yeah, so I've just done that my whole life. Been a beef farmer. I love it. It's as most farming kids, it's all I've ever known, and it's all I've ever loved, really. And then sort of about 5 years ago, my best friend and myself were sat in this bar, which is a garage, and we were sinking pints over lockdown, and we not long built it. And I was like, this is madness. This is madness. How I've built all this bar, we've installed a draft system, and that we can't have anyone round. And this is madness. We sat there like, obviously in lockdown, we all did things we shouldn't have done. And we were going through the laws of go through the lockdown laws and what was classed as essential work. We found out that podcasting was classed as essential work. So we thought, why don't we start a podcast? Let's have a go at this podcasting thing. We'll spend, a few £100 on kit. And then the plan will be, if the police kick down the door, we can be pissed as we want. But as long as we've got microphones in front of our face, it's all legal and all above board. Um, so, so we did that for a few years. We've been doing that for a few years now. And we had an amount of money in the account. Finally got to a point where we'd, done all right. We've got some money. And I'd had this sort of harebrained idea of starting a clothing company as a bit of a joke, really. It wasn't even, it wasn't starting a clothing company. It was more so just a joke. And it's just going to be a little side project alongside the podcast. And this money that we have, we're going to be taxed on it, obviously horrendously. 'Cause it's just sat there doing nothing. And I said, well, avoid the tax. Can we have a go at my funny little joke? And we'll spend this on it. So we ordered 150 sweatshirts with the Dead
Right.
Badger clothing company on it. And it that was 8 months ago. And my funny little joke has now turned into something neither of us were really expecting, but we've just sort of ridden the wave here, to be honest. And that's
Well,
the sort of
I was going to say, you seem to be out there, literally watching your social feeds. All right, it is parents advisory and close to the bone on some of the bits, but you've got some fairly high end names popping up wearing your kit.
Yeah, I think we've been in a really fortunate position, in that we've been doing this podcast a long time, and through that we've met a lot of big influencers. We've met a lot of like famous people. You guys will probably know, your listeners will probably know, the likes of Johnny Carter from TGS Outdoors.
Yep.
I've got to meet him and got to know him, and lots of people like that. So when we decided we were going to have a go at this clothing company, they were all kind enough to just promote it for us and just sort of really, really happy for us and just backed us. So we've really had a leg up in that sense of, just a really good community around us of, good friends and influencers. They're like, yeah, we'll wear it for a laugh. And of course, they're charging God knows what to wear other people's stuff, and they're just doing us for free because they're like, these idiots are starting this clothing company, and it's hilarious. So of course we're going to back them.
Yeah, but that's sometimes that's the best part about it. You watch the stuff you do and like your adverts and all the rest of it. And yeah, I was watching away and I was like, actually, they're good. They're funny. They're good lads. They're having a laugh. And that's what life's about. Life's too short to be out there just sort of being all serious about things. And it was like, okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. And you kind of take a bit of a jab, don't you, at sort of a lot of the other brands that are out there in some ways.
Yeah, we've been very good at not naming anyone in particular, because I don't
No, exactly.
do other people down. But it's been kind of funny because where it all really started was I was seeing this never-ending stream of sort of country word clothing company. There are so many out there, and I take nothing away from them. They've all done really, really well for themselves, and I respect the grind. I'm in business as well, so I understand that it's, I'm all for it. However, having done this podcast for a while, I knew that our audience and the community that we've built around that are not really this standard middle class. Dad's got if mum and dad have got a holiday home on the south coast, and we, go off skiing in Val d'Isère, once a year. I know that we're all just like trash humans. We are degenerates, and we'll be being sick on our shoes on a Saturday night, not round the chaps club, with sort of cigarettes and porn. And so I really thought that why don't we do the Dead Badger Clothing Company? Being from the south, you know, TB's a big problem down here, and it's always that in joke of seeing a dead badger on the road with tire tracks through it. I thought, well, it's close to the bone. We've been close to the bone on this podcast for a lot of years, and I thought, why don't we take our marketing angle to this? Just like really go off the deep end, really go close to the bone, fly, sail as close to the fly as close to the sun as we can, and see if it hits. And I think it has. I think it's really hit that niche of. I think it's kind of refreshing for people to see a clothing brand that A, doesn't take itself too seriously, B, is run by an apparent idiot who has no idea what he's doing, which I can't say is false either. I really am winging it. That's no joke. Um, and I just thought in the rural fashion, the rural clothing industry really not needed me, but needed something a little different. And whether that's, I mean, you could make the point that a lot of our sort of clothing is very similar, but they're all kind of, you have to stay within the bounds if you want
I
to
was
sell
going to say
something.
it's pretty much, it's like young farmers fashion, isn't it? Really,
It is, and you have, if you want to sell stuff, you have to kind of stick within that fashion. You can sort of stray off of it a little bit, but really, if you want to sell stuff, you have to kind of stick within the current sort of bounds. Um, and I just thought I can do that, but I can just market it like an absolute lunatic. And it just seems to have done really well, and I'm really surprised, and I am sort of humbled by it because I am just an idiot podcaster, a beef farmer, podcaster with really not a lot of idea. But through along the way, I'm just working it out. Me and my business partner, he's been so good about just saying, yeah, you know what, you just go, just do what you have to do.
well, it's some of the cases. It's obviously in the videos. You've obviously got either your business partner or your wife or something like that. You can't say that. You just can't put that out there and things like that. And it's just like You can see it's gonna happen.
Yeah. I think she is. My wife has reminded me a couple times. She's like, I know you have this sense of humor on the podcast. I know you have this sense of humor in person, but we do have to be careful because I think what it is I've spent a lot of time watching American companies, how they do a lot of marketing. I go out to the States once a year, or try to, so got a good connection with a lot of people over there, and I've had this watch a lot of their marketing that they do over there, and a lot of it is really wild, a lot of it is really out there. And what I have to remember is that they have freedom of speech in the US, so they can say what they want. I have to keep being reminded by my wife that there will be a line that you will cross at some point and get in trouble, but until then, just try and keep it on a level. So
I was going to say, it's when you get the knock at the door now. It seems to be the new thing, isn't it, from social
isn't it
media?
just?
And you could get the knock at the door, and excuse me, you said something that offended somebody on social media. But hey, carry on doing what you're doing at the moment until that knock at the door comes.
I think that's the thing. I've always been of the opinion that you know, everything is funny or nothing's funny. You can find something not funny, but you can't stop people saying things just because you're offended. And I think I've long said in the last sort of year, 6 months, that the tide is really turning on this woke culture that we're seeing. Um, I think a lot of people I know will say, oh, you should be able to say what you want and you should be able to do what you want to do. And I completely agree with them, but nobody really says it. There's still a lot of self-censorship out there.
Yes.
And I like to think, be the change that you want to see in the world. So if I want to put on a rice paddy hat and do an Asian accent, I'm going to do it. And if it gets me in trouble, then it gets me in trouble. But at least people can look at what we've done and gone, well, they did it. It was funny. I mean, they're in trouble now, but they did it.
But you think it's not that long ago, only like what, 30 years back, you had some absolutely fantastic comedians that did it, and it was never a problem. It just happened, and people laughed at it.
What, 20 years ago, maybe? What was it? Little Britain?
Yeah.
Look at Little Britain and the things they used to do. And I mean, it's a little bit dated in places now, but the comedy that they did was really, what would be considered absolutely problematic these days. But if you think about it the other way, David Walliams and Matt Lucas haven't been cancelled for it, have they?
Nope. No,
they're
exactly.
still hugely popular. I think it's because both of them have gone towards that more they've, apologized for what they've done in the past. And I think, oh,
Well, that's right.
but
You'll just have to dead badge your clothing. We make no apologies. Next slogan or something like that.
can see, well, I have to do one of those horrendous YouTuber apology videos at some point where I sit behind my bar with a little script in a white shirt. I understand what I've said has been very offensive to a lot of people. Yeah,
But
but
it won't be offensive probably to the people that you were taking the piss out of. It will be offensive to some middle class sitting in an office type of thing that doesn't understand it at all, hasn't seen comedy before.
yeah, I think you're right. And also, I've had a lot of faith in the algorithms that are of social media, in that the algorithms will only serve you stuff that you want to see. It's
Yeah.
not going to serve me with a load of liberal nonsense and lots of. I'm not going to get into it, but it's not going to serve that kind of stuff up to me because I'm not interested in it to me. It's just going to serve me car crashes and lots of lots of hunting and lots of shooting, all that kind of stuff. So I think that it's not going to put my sort of marketing and our sort of advertising in the realm of people that don't want to see it, because it's just not going to fly. And I think that's where I've sort of realized that there was a bit of I have an angle here, and if as long as I do it right and I don't pay for too many paid ads to get it in front of the wrong eyeballs, I should be good.
I think absolutely, because I was like, that's one of your ads, isn't it? You sitting there and you're going through, and it's like scrolling through. I've completed this app. Obviously, something like Instagram car crash, this, that. Oh yeah, that's it. Have a beer, job done. It's like, well, it pretty much is Insta and all the rest of them now. And the thing is, you're probably in a good place because you're probably not like the rest of us in the hunting community that we put one thing up that like has a firearm and boom, you're shadow banned. Yours is just advertising and a laugh.
Yeah, we did a really we went to friend of mine's, Abby Coombs. I went to hers probably earlier this year, and we did a clay shoot, and she was very kind to say, oh, why don't we all wear this dead badger stuff, and we'll do a little promo video. And we were having a great shoot, and so many of the pictures from that got taken down just because we had firearms. And we even went to a local shooting ground, a clay ground, and we were doing a lot of shooting there. Took a load of pictures, and they all got pulled just for firearms. It's a real shame, because they look at a lot like yourself and everyone else in your sort of wheelhouse of hunting and whatnot, and trying to grow a social media following by doing that, but you can't post any of the stuff that you're doing, really.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I think that field sports is having a rough enough time of it at the moment. It has done for the last few years. It really needs all the help it can get. But when you've got the likes of Meta and TikTok that are really screwing you really on what you're trying to promote, and it's all you ever hear is the bad stuff in the news about shooting, about how there's this and that and the other. But you guys and people like yourself that are out there doing it in the right way, doing it responsibly, it just doesn't get promoted. And I think
No, and I think that's just, well, it goes to everything though, because you mentioned Abby there, and obviously she's got her uh Insta and all the rest of it feed and stuff like that. But then my friend's a photographer, professional photographer, and he struggles. He goes, tits and bums, that's it, but blacklisted straight away kind of stuff. He has
yeah.
just as much hassle with that. And it's just like, so what do people actually want to see on social media? It probably does boil down to your comedy ticks all the boxes because it's the moment of madness, isn't it?
Well, I think so. I think don't get me wrong. I've been writing all these like video ideas on my phone, and I keep coming up with them. What if I was going to put a balaclava on and have my AR-15 and make some sort of IRA joke? And I thought, no, because not only is that going to get me in trouble with firearms licensing, it's also going to get me in trouble with the IRA.
Yeah, maybe keep the balaclavas out the way and stuff like that. But I just keep doing what you're doing. So you keep mentioning a podcast. Let's have a plug of that. What's your podcast about, and what have you done with
Well,
it?
I feel like I'm in a safe space here that I can promote it, because I'm sure a lot of your listeners are, the kind of people that would like our podcast and aren't going to be offended by what we say on there. It's called In the Doghouse.
Okay.
It's very much, as you can see the setting here. We're obviously on a video call, but you can see the setting here. It is a bar. It is always just four blokes in a bar, usually saying really problematic stuff. We're not big enough that we've ever been flagged by any sort of government agency or whatever. But we say a lot of stuff on there. We make some jokes we shouldn't. And it's just four guys in a pub having some beers. It's essentially the ethos that we took was, it's those conversations you have with your friends in a pub, having a few pints, and all we did was put microphones in front of our faces and just cross our fingers that we never got cancelled. But I think cancel culture only exists if you let it exist, really. That's been my sort of thoughts on it.
Yeah,
So,
100%. I think the podcast sort of wave has kicked off, and there's more and more people listening to it, and
yeah,
it seems to be one of those things that if you've got something that, exactly as you said, it's that being able to sort of listen in for the pub conversation. I think that's where people seem to like it. It's a bit like that voyeurism kind of idea that they can overhear what's going on, but they feel like they're part of the situation.
100%, 100%. I think that's what, especially with it starting during lockdown. I know there are a lot of people, out there can see their friends, can go to the pub, and it was like you say, that sort of voyeuristic angle to it, where people felt like they were in the bar with the boys, and we're just making stupid jokes, and we are absolutely brutalizing each other on the mics. The kind of saying the most horrible things to each other, and it would just have us in stitches, and we had that kind of hope that it would have everyone else in stitches as well. So, and that's just kind of the thing we've built off, and we've had some really interesting people on the show, and yeah, it's just, so most of the time it's just we get in here on a Tuesday night, we hit record, and we just work it out as we go along. And I think that's some of the best shows are like that, really.
And I think you're right. I think the thing that I always found when I first started out doing this, if you actually gave a guest a list of questions, they answered your questions to the T, and the
Yeah.
conversation didn't flow. Whereas actually now it's kind of you fire one question out of them, and then after that the conversation goes. You can end up down a rabbit hole, but sometimes that conversation is something you were never expecting to get, and it's
Yeah,
brilliant.
absolutely. When we first, it's similar in that sense. When we started doing it, we'd have a big list of things you wanted to get through and ask them, and you find yourself doing more of an interview, a question and answer segment, opposed to a conversation. So I'd have a couple talking points, and then I just let it go from there. And you think you're going to start off talking about OnlyFans and trucking, and in the end you talk about what sort of gravel you're putting on your driveway that week, and it's and often that's where all the funnies are.
Oh, 100%. And you know what? That's how it should be. It's like this podcast is primarily outdoors and hunting, but it's so nice to bring different guests in from all different walks of life. Obviously, you do a bit of shooting and stuff like that, so we've got a link there, but you're also in the farming community, which, yeah, beef prices are up at the moment, but it probably hasn't always been, and it's been a struggle. But actually, everybody in this community all ties together because we're all interlinked in a strange way.
I think we're all brought together really by the land, aren't we? That's
Yeah,
essentially it. I
pretty
mean,
much.
everyone regardless whether you're shooting, whether you're stalking, or whether you're farming or contracting or hedge laying, we're all here because of the land. And I think we are a different breed in that sense. And we don't like the city. We like the land, and I like ciders. That's generally me down to a T.
But that's it, isn't it? We all have a connection to the outdoors, the environment around us, and it's like, yeah, nature, wildlife. You probably look after your cows in an amazing way, and if there's an ill cow or something like that, you will do everything for it. It's the same. You could be out
Mm.
on the hill deer stalking. If you see a wounded animal, you are going to take that one out, or you need to feed them because it's now chucking it down with snow out on the hill. We'll roll a bale of hay out for them. And anybody that I know, obviously this is a bit of an echo chamber, but if we ever get this out to people that are in the non-hunting community that listen, it's like, actually, hunters, farmers, people that look after the land, they're pretty much the best conservationists you've got out there.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you, and I've said it before and I've said it again that we're anyone in the hunting community, whether it be field sports or whatever, or farmers as well, we're just demonized as these animals who just want to kill, 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 and we have this bloodlust for things, but nobody understands the concept of conservation behind it. Nobody understands, wildlife management, and I think the main thing is you're always going to struggle to get through to the antis about that because they just don't want to hear it. They have this set mindset that we are, you're terrible people, whether it be the vegans, the antis, or whatever. And it's hard because you can never, I find you can never have a level conversation with people like that, and it sucks because that's what you want to do. I'd love nothing more than to sit across from a vegan on on my show, on your show, whatever, and have a long format debate with them without, the whole "you're a murderer, you're a murderer, you're a baby killer," that whole thing. It's
Yeah, exactly. That seems to be that's their way because it's drilled into them. I don't understand why. Sometimes, don't get me wrong, up here you can have that conversation and it's not they sometimes get it. And I know there are some
well, that's
vegans
good.
that have done it for a reason and health they think health benefits and all the rest of it. But I think further south you probably suffer more with the very militant, especially obviously down your way when you're talking there about TB. Well, God, that just unleashed a hell of a realm of people following guys home that were doing the badger cull and everything like that. I don't know whether you had any issues with you around the farm.
I've not had any problems around the farm or anything like in that sense, but I have heard some god awful stories about, the guys that are out there doing the cull. And they're out there trying to do a job, and then you've got people walking across. They're on the night vision, and you've got thermals, and you've got people walking across the fields, and you just think, I'm trying to do this in the safest way possible, and I understand they're trying to stop you doing it. I get what their angle is, but my God, the caliber of those rifles, you think that is not okay.
But they have there's almost nothing between the ears in some cases, and it's a real shame. But I don't understand how. Yeah, you take all of this on board, but how has the country become so disconnected from the countryside? The Britain used to be so connected to the countryside, really was. You go back to the war, everybody understood that the food
Dig
came
for
from the
Britain,
countryside. Yeah,
dig for
exactly.
victory, wasn't it? Yeah, that was
Big
right.
for
Yeah.
victory. But people turned their gardens into allotments. They understood they wanted rabbits. They knew that the hunter would get them or somebody would be out poaching. Farms were doing their best. You'd work with the land girls, etc., etc. And yet somehow we've forgotten all of that.
I know, and it really makes me upset because yeah, I think it's a lot of ideologies that are being promoted, and I have my own personal beliefs, you have your own personal beliefs, and I'm sure we don't agree on a lot of things, as I don't agree with a lot of people on a lot of things, but I'm a great believer in everyone should be able to have their own views on things, but it's a fact that we are sort of to have, we're forced to, I don't really know how to word it, I'm ballsing this up something fierce, but it's almost like everyone else is right and we're wrong. And these people that have these opinions on, field sports farming, whatever, they're right, and there's no middle ground. There's no middle ground. There's no pleasant conversation to be had about any of this other than screechy signs and balaclavas. And I just, I don't know. I don't know how it's got so polarized in that sense. You don't. It's not often you come across someone who doesn't have an opinion on hunting or doesn't
Yeah.
have an opinion on farming. Um, uh, Usually, so they're either absolutely for it or absolutely against it. And you could say the same has happened in politics, hasn't it? In the last 20 years, there aren't a lot. It's not a lot of moderate left or moderate right anymore, is there
No,
really?
not really. No, not at
Yeah.
all. But it's a strange situation that we've got ourselves into. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's almost as if they don't want you guys doing the farming. There'll always be a job, unfortunately, for deer stalkers because they don't want deer, but they don't want anybody else to enjoy anything else out in the countryside. And it's like, well, what do you want then? Do you want to just tarmac the whole place and call it a car park?
Yeah, I don't know if it's up there, but it's a saying down here is the countryside only looks like the countryside because we manage it and we make it look like that. If we let it, if all farmers and everyone that works the land just said, all right, fine, you don't want us anymore, fine, it would just turn into an absolute wilderness and look
Oh, totally.
terrible.
Yeah,
You
but the
know,
rewilders would jump on that and go, "Oh, we've done our job. Look, there's trees everywhere." But it's like, no, there's just weeds and shit
and no
everywhere.
food and food
No,
for
no,
anyone
no
else.
food. Oh, what happened to all the bird life? Well, the vermin ate that, and then the vermin died out as well. It's just like you, you really can't win. And we see it up here. Obviously, we've now got this massive trend of big Scottish estates being bought, and then we're gonna fence them and plant trees and leave the vermin alone because the vermin will do everything. It's like, but there's no wildlife.
Popular beer company, if I remember rightly, is quite one of the.
The Outdoor Gibbon podcast is proudly sponsored by the Shooting and Hunting Academy. Through the Academy, shooters, hunters, and those involved in the use of firearms can gain an in-depth and unique level of training that enables them to shoot better, behave more effectively in the field, up their strike rates, as well as learning new skills. Crucially, those new to deer stalking, the Academy also offers the Proficient Deer Stalker Certificate Level 1, the PDS-1, a deer management certificate that is nationally recognised and accredited both by LANTRA and UK Rural Skills. Visit the Shooting and Hunting Academy to find out more. Let's get back to the show. We could talk about that one. They've recently sold up because all their trees died.
Sorry, did you know this really badly? I didn't. The last I'd heard was that they were going around buying up all this land and planting all these trees and taking a lot of shooting ground away from.
Yeah, so they bought this big estate. They deer fenced the whole place, fenced everything out, slaughtered everything that was in there, killed all of it, rabbit fenced the whole place, or dug up peatland and beautiful historic hillside, planted a load of trees on it, which the trees then died, and now they've sold the place, and now there's a big debate as to whether they should pay back the grant for the trees that they got as well. So yeah, it's a real double-edged sword there for them.
Well, I think they're in a bit of financial dire straits. Well, not dire straits, but I think it's all had a bit of a financial downturn for them, hasn't it, of late? From what I've understood, a lot of places that opened are now closing, and it's a case of too big too soon. I've never. I mean, a couple of their beers are quite nice, but I try not to drink them out of to make a more ethical stand on it.
Well, I think that's the thing, isn't it? There was a big downturn when you buy an estate, sack all the keepers. People are like, well, drink their beer out of principle, kind of thing. Because you're not just killing an estate, you're killing a community at the end of the day. And that's what a lot of these rewilders and forestry owners and things like that are coming in, and they're buying these places up. And literally, we were just talking about it today on the hill. You come in, you wipe out. Okay, say the place has got 5 gamekeepers. Well, 4 of those might be married with kids. Suddenly they're gone. So that's 4, 5, 6, maybe 10 kids aren't going to the village school anymore. That's the shop probably going to close. The school's gone down by half its size. And all of a sudden, that's a whole community just gone from the
these communities exist because nobody comes in and makes these drastic changes, or shuts down the local factory, or takes away this massive point of employment. And I it makes me laugh that they think they're doing this for like the good of society, but in fact they're crushing a local society by doing it. But that doesn't really. What makes headlines is we're planting all these trees, not the shop, the pub, and the school are closing down in this small rural village. Well done.
No, exactly. And we're planting all these trees, but what we're actually doing is we're shooting 300 deer down on the fence line. We won't tell anybody about that. Or you can go in whichever circle you want. You've obviously got the forestry wanting, as soon as they see a deer, it's got to go. Hares, rabbits, you name it, they've got to go. Then they're going to spend millions to potentially deer fence an entire estate. It's like that's like 20,000 acres, and you're going to put a fence around the whole place. Who's paying for that? Oh, well, that'll be the taxpayer paying for that then.
Oh, I just lunacy. It's lunacy, and this is why I try not to spend too much time on the news, because it just makes me so angry.
But this doesn't come out in the news. This only comes out because a guy's been to one of the deer meetings and the estate, and we've been finding stuff out, and then we can filter it out because they don't tell anybody about this. So but then if we spread it around as the hunting community or the stalking community or whatever you want, we're all just making it up and it's all wrong, and they're not doing that. They're loving everything on the hillside. So you can't win, and it doesn't matter where you are in the country. This is the problem all over. Nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah, I know, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Can I ask you, because I've been intrigued, and I know I'm turning the podcast around a little bit on you, but I wanted to ask you about guns.
Yeah. Sorry, I got cramp in my leg.
So I didn't wonder what you were doing, leering over the laptop.
Yeah, obviously walking 17K today on the hill, and my legs just got into a spasm.
God, oh, I feel bad now. I've just sat in a JCB most of the morning. That's about it.
Right, fire away with the question you were going to ask.
Yeah, I wanted to know what calibers are you using for
So,
a deer up on the hill?
so basically my go-to is a 308. Always
Yep.
has been. It just does. It's great for the red. It's got good stopping power. I'm sure there'll be people listening to this going, "Oh no, 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 you don't want to say that." But I've just literally got myself a 270 as well, which seems to be the traditional Scottish caliber for hill stalkers. And then if you come down onto the smaller stuff like the roe deer and all the rest of it, the nice thing about Scotland is we're allowed to shoot roe deer with a 223 or a 22 caliber, which you're not allowed to.
Yeah, just speaking to somebody this week about that actually. Weirdly,
Yeah,
he's got a 220 Swift,
yeah.
and he applied for it for deer, and they said no. He said, well, it's a hell of a fast round, and it's going to do what it needed to do. And he went back and forwards with them. They said, yeah, all right, fine, you can have it for deer. And he got his license back, and he said, it says 220 Swift, license for deer in Scotland.
Yep.
And he,
Yeah, yeah.
he lives right in Somerset.
It's a joke really because it's a perfectly capable caliber, but the problem I think the police forces get a bit twitchy and they change all sorts of things. I remember when the 17 HMR came out, and it would take a fox, but then boys were pushing it. They were trying to push the distance, and I
Yeah.
think that's where it was like, well, okay, it's not so good. So the 22 caliber, according to the UK, is like, and most of the stuff down in England is shot close range anyway, so it's perfectly capable. But I
I
think
was
it
going to
was
say,
more. Yeah, it's perfectly capable.
we're not dealing with distance down here. Like
No.
most of the stuff we do is, it's not like Scotland where you're, yards and yards and yards out. We're at the end of a, 20-acre field at most. There's sometimes less, most of the time less than that in Somerset. It's tiny little fields we've got here in comparison to the guys out on the East Coast and up in the up north a bit. But a friend of mine's just got I think is it a TX3 maybe? Is that what it
Y-
is? T3, I don't know, Tika, and he's had it rebarreled for 22 Creed. It's
Right.
22 Creedmoor? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not a caliber that's even available in this country yet.
A
So he's
new
having
Wildcat caliber from the States, isn't it? That they're
yeah,
talking about.
he's had the barrel put he's had this barrel made put on, and then he was showing me, he's like, you can't buy these. He's like, I'm making these now. He says, and he says the police don't even know what I'm allowed to use it for, but I've got it.
Well, I think that's the thing. Over the last few years, calibers and rifles and all the rest of it. Obviously, you hear lots of people now talking about like the 6.5 Creedmoor. It's become the new rifle to have. But
Polarizing caliber, from what I understand. Every people love it or people absolutely hate it.
yeah, well, we won't talk about sort of the descriptions that you hear on it and the videos that you see about the Creedmoor, but we'll leave that there.
Paris.
Exactly.
I haven't got a dog in this race. I am purely rim fired down here, so I've not got any centre fire stuff. But I just find it funny to sit in the grandstands and watch.
But it does the job. It works. But then every caliber has its weakness, and it's all down to the monkey behind the trigger at the end of the day. If you place
Yes.
it, even you were talking there, you're on a rim fire. If you place your rim fire bullet in the right place, things fall over.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
100%. So basically, it's the guy behind the trigger that knows how to shoot. If you can, whatever you've got, you can shoot it. Like a lot of stuff in Scotland used to be shot with 22 250. And I mean, even up to red stags with 22 250. The gamekeeper would go out with everything. The 270 was purely for the guests. If he was out doing vermin control, 22 250 did the lot. Didn't matter.
Yeah,
But
that's a round
if
that shifts.
Oh, it does shift. Yeah, exactly. But you just have to look at it that way. These guys can shoot long distances. They know what they're doing. Happy days. But it's down to practice and training. It's like everything. It's like I wouldn't come down there and have a clue what you would show me about a cow. And you'd be like, oh, it does this, this, and this, and you got to put it in there. And I'll be like, what? What? That's something that I don't know. But I'll take you out in the hill and I'll show you how a deer works.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, really, I've only got into shooting properly, and my father shot and my grandfather shot, and but I've only really gotten into shooting in the last sort of 5 years, and that's mainly been clays. Obviously, I've got my rifles, but that's purely for pest control, short distances. I'm talking sub 100 yards, mainly rabbits and rats, and I've got section one shotgun for flocking birds on the crops, and really, I'm I don't know a huge amount. I know enough to get me by in conversation, but I don't. I've got so much more to learn. And like I say, I've got a CZ 455, yeah, it chambered in 17, and I love that gun. Absolutely love it. I was very near to buying I think it was a Ruger Precision 17, and then I felt the weight of it. And I
Yep.
was like, this is not a gun for dragging around in the fields in the slightest. That was very much like buying a Ferrari to do an off-road rally stage.
The CZ though, it's one of those things you can chuck it in the back of the Land Rover, drive out to the field, get it out, take a shot, chuck it back in the back of the Land Rover, and carry on again.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Holds. I've just got a Hawk 17 scope on there, 17 HMR scope on there. Holds zero beautifully. Wherever I put the crosshair, it's going down. I love it. It's a brilliant rifle. I've got two long rifle as well, a MP 1522 for my sins. I'm sure all your listeners have gone, oh. But that is what happens when you don't know anything about rifles and you walk into a rifle shop with your.
That looks nice.
That's an AR. That's cool. And the man in the shop thinks, new one born every minute.
The man in the shop goes, we've had that on the shelf for too long. Thank you very much. That's going out the door today.
Yeah, I don't get it wrong. It's a lot of fun, but it is. I have found it to be a completely useless gun. But it's a good laugh. It's good fun. If you've just got a few rabbits to do at close range, then it's absolutely fine. But
I was going to say, you've got to be strong as well, having a Section 1 shotgun. Do you load it with heavy shot? Because otherwise you're like walking along with a drain pipe pointed at the floor. And the more you shoot, the lighter it gets, and you can shoot higher up in the sky.
Yeah, I had first gun on my Section 1 shotgun was a Mossberg 590 Mariner, 24-inch barrel, lovely gun. Absolutely, I like a Mariner coat. Doesn't require a huge amount of maintenance. And I've always been a fan of a pump opposed to a semi. And I had it, and it was brilliant until it wasn't, and then it had a firing issue that I just could not get. I think it was something to do with the spring in the bolt for the firing pin. And I think from what I read, there was a problem with them being too light and they would drop fire like years ago. So they put these really stiff springs in there. And obviously the hammer coming up to hit the back of the bolt was just not enough. It was light striking so many cartridges. And when you're trying to shoot flocking birds, the last thing you need is the gun letting you down, because the flocks run past and you're just racking shells out the side that are firing.
Which you now got to pick up from the mud, kind of thing.
You're immediately trying to keep them. You're trying to protect the crops, and it's just great. They've all just gone over me, and I've got 2 shots off out of 9. Well, I may as well have kept the bloody Section 2. Yeah, so that's gone. That's why I say it's gone. It's gone into storage at my local RFD for them to try and figure out what's wrong with it and get it gone. And now for my sins, not that anyone's asking, I'm just reading off my cool guns. I've got a Spars 12 now, as we spoke about earlier in the week. I don't know why I've got it. But it's cool, isn't it?
Again, the guy in the gun shop was like, we've got another one.
That's Holt's. That's bloody Holt's sealed bids. Every time it comes up on my phone saying, the sealed bids are catalogued out now. And I think, this is going to be another 4-figure day, isn't it? Yeah. So
if it does the job, it does the job. That's the main thing, isn't it?
I don't think it will. It's the most complicated combat shotgun ever made. When the Italians decided in the 80s, we're going to make a combat shotgun. We're going to put about 18 buttons and a lot of levers, and you have the loading gate. It has the force of 1,000 suns, so you cannot even get the cartridges in there. It is the most complicated thing I've ever. How you're meant to use that in a high-pressure combat scenario, I don't know, because I bloody take the thing apart of a kitchen table.
But the Italians built tanks with more reverse gears than forward gears. Remember that one?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I've been in the process of finding a few bits for it. Obviously, it's a gun that went out of production 25 years ago, and Franchi, as they are now, is not Franchi who built the Stars. They've obviously been bought out by I want to say Beretta. Am I right there?
Probably,
E-
yeah.
Yeah, or it's one of the other Italian gun makers bought them out, and they just have no spares. They're like the Spars 12. What do you need? They still exist. No, we don't have any parts for them, you idiot. So I've been finding O-rings and a few little bits, and hopefully it's all ready to go now. But yeah, what I'm going to use it for, obviously flocking birds. Will it work? I don't know. We'll find out. This is all fun, isn't it?
I can't wait to find out whether that actually works. He's there. He's got 12 shots. Oh, he didn't get anything off. Oh, well, there you go.
Click, 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 click. Yeah, I've got need to press the levers and all the buttons in a certain way.
And the
Yeah,
flocking birds have sailed across again.
that's when I shut that on the floor and pick up the triple crown and just let her have it.
Just think, though, how much you're saving in cartridges with every time it doesn't. People be like, how did you clear all the birds? Why, I just stood here and clicked the trigger.
Just stood there and went click, click, click. It was Mike shouting and cussing that made them get swarm away.
Oh, fantastic. So
Yeah.
let's kind of pull this back around to where we were at the beginning. So what's the future hold, do you think, for the Dead Badger clothing company? It doesn't roll off the tongue that well, does it? All the time?
No, it doesn't. I mean, for an idea that I thought of while driving the JCB doing some mucking out, I really didn't put a lot of thought into like in a short, snappy name, did I? Hence why with the DBCC, that's what we've sort of shortened it to for a nice small little logo. What is the future? I don't know. I mean, Lord, we've only been going 8 months, and for what started in my spare room and then grew into a bit more of the spare room and took over the spare room, and then it went into a garage that we had spare, and then it was in there for about 2 months, and then we moved into a shipping container, and then we've outgrown that, and now I've put basically I put a shipping container on the farm, and I filled it with all this stuff, and I said to the old man, I was like, hey, look, this clothing company's going a bit good, so I need a bit more space. I'm going to move out of the garage, and can I have just like a little bit where I can put the shipping container? He's like, yeah, yeah, no worries, yeah, well done, son, well done, which is a rare thing, getting an attaboy from the old man, as all us men know. And I was like, oh, cool. And then, of course, it's sort of outgrown this for a shipping container. So I thought, well, the agreement was really what I've done is I've rented the land from him, which is a very small plot. He didn't specify height restrictions, so what I've done is just dumped another one directly on top. I think that's what the bloody hell is this? So that's as far as we've grown so far. I think realistically, from a logistical point of view, I can't have any more containers. I'm gonna have to get a unit if it gets any bigger, which it probably is. But going forward, Lord, we've got spring summer to think about. With the winter collection is pretty much done. We are looking at doing a collaboration with a well-known outdoor brand. I'm not going to say too much on here because it's all a bit under wraps.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see this funny little joke, and now I've got local agricultural dealers getting in touch who want to stock our stuff, and we've started selling wholesale now into actual physical retail. We're attending Llama, Llama the show. Yeah, we're attending that, which is, as I'm sure you probably know, costs an absolute arm and a leg. I've just my whole thought process with it has been what I took from a chap that runs Lockwood Smocks. He said entrepreneurship is jumping out of a plane and stitching a parachute on the way down. And that is the entire ethos that I've gone with, of just place that massive order and put 10% down as a deposit. Figure out where the 90% is going to come from in the lead time it takes to make it. And that has been what we've done. It's worked up until now. But yeah, I think where are we going to go with it long term? I don't really have a good answer to the question.
So people just need to keep watching, and if they don't follow you, come and follow you, basically. Now, if anybody's curious about this, where can they find these products if they don't know it?
So we are our website is dbco.uk. There's just deadbadger.co.uk. If you just search us on Instagram, it's Dead Badger Clothing Company. We are on TikTok. Weirdly enough, quite a lot of videos get removed from TikTok. I can't think why. So we don't do so well on there, but we are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. Just bang us into Google, Dead Badger Clothing Company. We're the first result that comes up. Weirdly, who would have thought with it? You're getting emails from people be like, you need to prioritize your SEO and we can optimize that for you. I'm thinking, no one else is Googling Dead Badger Clothing Company. I'm always at the top, Dick.
Fantastic. So, just that sort of leads me on quite nicely there to how oh, I've come kind of like you've lost my train of thought at that point.
Sorry.
No, you're all right. It was obviously you're growing on that side of things. That was it. Is the Dead Badger Clothing Company, are you doing it UK based, or are you having all the stuff made somewhere else like the Far East?
Yeah, our Bear No Bones, we're getting it made. We're getting it made abroad,
Okay.
purely because of our price point.
Yep.
As much as I say I don't know what I'm doing, and I really don't. But when I looked at starting this, I obviously did my research and saw what sort of price point I wanted to be at, which was, basic mid lower end of the price points, around the 50 to 60 pound mark for a quarter zip or a hoodie or whatever. And I started pricing what I could get in the UK, and very quickly realized that there is no business model there for the price point that I was looking at. We are having it obviously made abroad. I'm not I'm not ashamed of that, and a lot of people sort of dodge around that question a lot and won't answer it straight, or give you this sort of like politician's answer. I've got a really good working relationship with my factory over in the east, so much so that they have invited me out there next year to go and see the factory, which is, God, I hope they've lost the videos.
I was gonna say.
Uh, They've invited me out to the factory because I think I can learn a lot from the production process and how things are done. So when I'm designing stuff, I always can always have that in mind. It's often a case of I think some things are really difficult, so I don't include them, even down to having these little custom zip pulls made with DBCC on them.
Okay.
I thought that was going to be a minimum quantity order of 20,000, and it was just not going to work. And in fact, it was like, oh no, you just pay for the dye. It's $50. Pay for the dye, and then the actual the mold. And that's fine. And so the plan is to go out there, see the factory. I've seen pictures of the factory. I get sent videos every day of the status updates on orders and stuff. And it's a lot. It's a long way away from the sweatshops that we all think there is out there. I mean, I'm sure there are some out there. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we all hear about them all the time. But from what I see, it just looks like a bunch of people just working hard. And at the end of the day, they're paid less. They've got a lower cost of living. Therefore, we're able to get products over here cheaper. And that is what I'd say 95% of other companies are doing. And I don't feel ashamed in doing that.
No, 100%.
Yeah. So I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to get myself in a whole load of legal trouble. But I know I've been approached, put it that way. I've been approached by a lot of other companies, and I've seen pictures of their factories, and I think there's no way in hell I would ever support this financially. So yeah, but yeah, I think what we're doing is good.
As I said, if it works, it works, and the quality is okay, and you're happy. It's not like you're trying to produce stuff that's waterproof or has an IP in it. It's just a fashion clothing brand at the end of the day. So
that's exactly it. As long as it's a product that I'm happy with and the quality's there. My whole ethos is being, just try and match or if not exceed the quality of the higher brands and just go for a way lower price point and shift twice as much stock. I think that's and just market it the right way, which has been an interesting roller coaster. I won't lie.
100%. But as I say, it's obviously worked. We looked at it. I do a bit of merch and stuff like that, and trying to build it in the UK, I have to end up buying something that's probably made in the Far East, like the hoodies and bits like that. But I've supported like a local business that does the embroidery work. And actually, for my sins, I actually bought myself a vinyl cutter and all the rest of it. And I do all the pressing and stuff like that. So literally everybody gets their own, and it's made in Scotland kind of thing, apart from the hoodie, which was probably made in the Far East.
Yeah, but that's it. With our podcast, we very much pride ourselves on, all right, the hoodie is made abroad, but we put all the printing, all the embroidery, all of that is done in the UK. End of story. We don't 99% of stuff we don't just have it done abroad and shipped over, because we could make a lot more money by doing that, but the podcast arm of things is just us sitting around having a laugh. If it makes a few quid, it makes a few quid, great. But the dead badger thing, I sort of realized from the start that when we saw the demand that we had in the first month with the first drop, I was like, right, this could be a real business. I have to take at least one of my little side projects seriously.
Well, all fairness to you, because at the end of the day, it's so nice. It's refreshing to talk to somebody that, yeah, still having a laugh running a business, but you've got a business that's actually bringing joy to people. They wear the kit. They're being seen out. You're getting social posts going up of people at top end events in dead badger clothing.
Yeah, and I will say there are a couple of firms out there. I'll be giving a big shout out. POSH Country Clothing, I believe they're called. I might have butchered that. I took the piss out of them. Not, I didn't name them, but I took the piss out of them in one of my reels, and I said, oh, darling, yes, we get inspiration from the yachting community and all this, and they commented on one of our posts and said, oh my God, getting shade thrown at us by the badger. And I dropped them a message and I said, look, I really appreciate you taking that in good jest because, I only made it as a joke. And they're like, no, honestly, we thought it was hilarious. So, although I'm out there poking fun at everyone and being, being the kid at lunch that no one wants to sit with, some of the guys out there are really taking it in their stride and find it hilarious. So big props to them because we've come out of nowhere, seemingly upset everyone and annoying everyone. And a lot of them have been like, these dickheads. And just sort
But
of take it in their stride.
But on the flip side of that, are you getting, obviously with it, do you get much hate as well? Do you get much abuse on the messages?
Not on social media. I get a lot of hate from the funny reels that I do because it's become a self-fulfilling prophecy. I read out DMs, once a week of people giving me shit. Excuse my language. And then people think, oh, if I give him abuse, my DM's going to make it into the next video. So people tell me my mustache looks terrible, or that I'm an idiot, or I don't know what I'm doing, or various abuse. And but a real genuine hate. We went to a local show, a local country show, and a chap walked into our stall, and we all he was taking pictures all the way around our stall. And a lot of people have done that throughout the day because a lot of people were taking pictures, sending it to their mates, and going, "Oh my God, have you seen this company? What a bunch of lunatics!" And this one chap took a pitch. It's a really bad story. I shouldn't really tell it, but I'm going. Uh, so he took these pictures and he posted it on local Facebook group. And he'd said, I can't believe this was allowed to be here at our local show. How dead badgers aren't a joking matter, or whatever, some other sort of liberal waffle. And then of course a lot of my friends, this is in our local town, a lot of my friends were following this post and were just commenting things like, it was the final comment that somebody wrote saying, I hope you know that they have given over £1 million to the protection of badgers. And he down the post and put an apology post off to say he was sorry. And it was basically, it just gave me it was just a real insight into people will just believe anything they read on the internet. He had created this whole problem in his own mind that we were these terrible people who, murder badgers. That was not the case. He didn't even speak to any of us or ask us any questions. And then somebody had given him more false information, and he had believed that and then apologized for it all. So yeah, but in the other than that, real genuine hate, no, everyone finds it funny. A few people have gone, ooh, a bit distasteful, but it's like, well, it's a joke, isn't it? It's just funny. It's just a logo and some words, Lord alive, if we can't.
And at the end of the day, I think if you're driving down the road, it's one of those common sights these days because there's so many of them. Up here, it's funny how all the badgers always fall out on the passenger side.
There is that common joke of, oh yes, there's a lot of badgers right next to that beef farm. How strange.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's to be honest, a lot of people said that this wasn't going to go anywhere. A lot of people said you are going to get in so much trouble, you're going to have the police after you, you're going to have the liberal lefties after you and whatever else. And I think because it's all been so just innocent fun, just some idiots just making a clothing company that everyone's just seen it for what it is. It's just a laugh. It's just a laugh.
Yeah, it's not like you're out there sponsored by some badger shooting fraternity or something like that. And if you were,
Exactly.
you'd probably have Petter on your door
Oh
wanting to
God,
talk to
yeah.
you. But at the end of the day, exactly, it's farming clothing. The people that are wearing it are, yeah, countryside. So happy days.
Yeah. Yeah, it was what was the other thing I was going to mention? Oh, that was it. At the look to sort of show you, give you a sense of how unseriously we take ourselves. At the local country show we went to, they had obviously a program for all the horse jumping and the show times and whatever else. And they'd asked us if we wanted an advertisement page in it, and I sort of said, yeah, of course, absolutely, support the local community, all about that. And I said, well, how they gave us a price list, and I said, well, how much for the back cover? And, oh, that's quite expensive. I was like, oh, but I think I want the back cover. So they, all right, here was the price. I said, yeah, agreed the price. That was fine. But what do you want? And I just said, right, so what I want is, I just want our logo. It just says Dead Battery Clothing Company, and this is where it came from. And at the bottom, it just said, we sell clothes, you should buy them. And that was it. It was like, you're going to spend that amount of money on that. I was like, yep, yep, that's exactly what I want. So you see all these horsey women stood at the ringside with their programs, and it just got my logo on the back with, we sell clothes, you should buy them.
Oh, fantastic. What a way to do it though. And that's some, you know what? Some of the best businesses, that's how they appear. So well done. Absolutely spot on.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
I think we'll draw it to a close now, unless there's anything else that you're desperate to tell us about the Dead Badger Clothing Company.
No, not particularly. Big restock coming, lots of new items, lots of new products. Other than that, if you're going to Llama at the NEC, come down and see us. We're going to be there all. Well, hopefully we'll be there the whole time. Hopefully we don't get kicked out. We can be quite problematic and drunk at these shows, but we'll see how it goes. The NEC is a bit more of a corporate environment than the local rural shows that we've been doing. So, yeah. But yeah, no, thank you so much for having me on. I really
And no,
appreciate it.
thanks for coming on, and thanks for sharing just basically your story and the Dead Badger Clothing Company.
No, thank you so much. It's been fantastic. I've really appreciated it.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye bye.
So the first thing to say is, if you are going to Llama, go along and see these guys. They sounds like a great crack, and you'll have a good laugh with them. Support them, buy some clothing. It does look pretty good, actually. Next thing, hopefully you enjoyed that podcast, and we've kicked off 2026 with a bit of a funny one. Probably going to move away from the clothing companies now. I've got one more to talk to, but then we'll get back onto some hunting topics and some other things like that, and some conservation, and we'll see how 2026 pans out. As I said, there's a lot of stuff in the pipeline, so keep checking back. We managed to release 2 episodes a month last year. We hit 88 countries and over 1,600 cities, I think. So, yeah, let's increase that, and hopefully 2026 will be a far stronger year for the podcast. See you soon.